Hello all and welcome back. Today we have a very interesting sort of double unboxing review of a couple of new 1/35th scale helicopter kits, specifically the AH-64D Apache Longbow and Apache Guardian AH-64E from Takom. Now, don't be fooled by the Snowman branding on this. This is a subsidiary of Takom. To get that out of the way right away, Takom and Snowman are essentially the same company. It's an umbrella type arrangement. Very likely that the Chinese manufacturers get some sort of tax break by setting up a new company. So sometimes when these new releases come out, that's why you have something like Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, Merit, I Love Kit. Just get that out of the way right now. And then, yeah, we're going to most likely unbox the Guardian because that's the one I plan to build sort of out of the box and go from there. So we're gonna clear all this stuff off the bench and we'll be right back. All right, so here we have the Takom / Snowman. We'll just say Takom for ease of understanding. Takom AH-64E Apache Guardian in 1/35th scale, kit number SP2602. On the box, not a whole lot going on, just a couple of sort of color callouts. There's some QR codes for you to scan. There's really, a parts map on the other side, and that's about it. So we'll dig into the box here and see what the sprues look like. Then I'll clear everything off the bench and we will unbag the sprues individually and take a look at some highlights. And later on in this video, we actually have a really cool chat with a special individual who actually flew Apaches. So that will be interesting, so stick around for that. But this is what's in the box, first time opening it. And we're presented with a lot of plastic. I can envision myself having trouble getting this all back in the box after this, but whatever, we're gonna build it, right? So doesn't have to go in the box. First thing, you see two fuselage halves, left and right halves, pretty standard right there. Put that aside. This is the clear sprue, including the top of the canopy, the various sides of the canopy, various manner of lenses and seeker head. Come back to that. More sprues. We won't individually annotate all this stuff. They are all individually bagged, which is nice to see. This is some larger, these are the sponsons with the avionics bays at the front. We'll unbag those in a minute. This is some tail pieces at the bottom. Then you get a bag, which includes a bit of vinyl. It looks like the ammo feed chute. There is a 3D printed something or other there, bit of cable, decals, and obviously the instruction manual. So we will break all this stuff out of bags and then come back to it sort of sprue-by-sprue and go from there. Okay, I thought we were gonna look at parts first, but I thought, why not look at the instructions first? Because then we have an idea of what we're looking at. We're also not gonna look at every sprue. There are plenty of online sites that will have much better sprue layouts and close-up photos than this video will provide you, but this is just an idea of what's in the box. So we'll start with the instructions. This is obviously like a side opening pamphlet. Parts maps, straight off into the cockpit. We will take a look at the cockpit parts in a minute to see how Takom has approached and how they've done compared to other Apache kits in the past. This is the fuselage showing what holes to open up for various, I would assume, antenna mounts. More in with the kind of the rotor drive housing, detail parts, cockpit going in the fuselage, detail parts, the gun, sensor turret on the nose, bottom fuselage pan going in, the kind of more, or the actual assembly of the nose sensors, assembling avionics bays. Honestly, would have loved to see these molded closed maybe with the avionics bay provided as a part, so you could kind of score along a line and cut it out and open it if you wished. But we will see when we build it how it actually fits, and we'll go from there. Attaching the sponsons to the fuselage. Moving along, Assembling the tail boom, adding details, more details. Those are the antennas right there that you drilled out holes for. Assembling the little stubby wings. I would guess that's an engine right there. Yeah, that's an engine. Assembling the exhausts. It does come with the upturned, I think they're called sugar scoop exhaust. Assembling more of the cowlings, attaching the engines to the fuselage. The other engine, showing the open engine bay access doors. Adding more details to the side the side of the tail boom. Adding landing gear, tailplane, tail rotor, actual main rotor head. That is main rotor head. Main rotor head. This is the optional, looks like the optional like round longbow style radar, it looks like. Yeah. Weapons. Only comes with a couple different kinds of hellfires, I believe. I don't think it comes with anything else interesting. A rocket pod, and adding the final little fiddly dangly bits. And just in case you wish to fold the rotor, which is nice, in case you're short on space, it does include that, and I think you have to skip a couple steps and skip to this step to add that. But yeah, you can fold the rotor head. And this is a stencil placement guide. Doesn't look terrible, but more on the bottom and the top, and color callouts. And then obviously this is the other boxing, and then, oh yeah, there's a third boxing, it's E of the World. I'm led to believe the E of the World is just no US markings, all international markings. That's the only difference, I think. Don't quote me on that. That's it. That is the Apache instructions. We'll come back in a minute for the actual parts look. Okay, and we're back. So this is not going to go in any particular order, mainly because I have sprues literally everywhere here. But we will start with looking at the parts. So we'll look at the sort of the main parts as far as I can find them on the sprues, and then we'll look at some of the detail sprues. And finally, we'll close out with the clear parts and the photo etch and the decals and stuff like that. So we'll come back to those. This obviously is what makes an Apache an Apache. This is the left fuselage half. I'll give you a close-up on that, and you can look for yourself and see the detail that Takom has managed to put in. See if anybody's taking notes here, Kitty Hawk. We want raised details, and there is plenty of that going around. You can catch that in the light. Lots of rivets. I don't look forward to having to fill along this bottom seam, but that will depend how the actual fit is. So this is the left fuselage half. Here's the right one. Pretty much more of the same. More raised details, lots of rivets, panels, stuff like that, all the way around. And these two do come individually bagged. All the sprues are individually bagged. I've unbagged them so we don't have to listen to plastic rustling. So more raised rivets, catch that in the light right there. Looks really good. Get those out of the way. I promise no plastic, but here's some plastic. These are some of the bits that go along the sponsons, or well, these are the sponsons. You have the avionics bay, again, more raised detail and fasteners. Trying to catch that in the light for you guys. We will have to see how these fit closed. Again, you have left and right here, and they plug in with these massive sort of locating holes under the fuselage. Again, looks really good. And a close-up of this one. Very nice. And then this is a cover, I believe, that goes between the fuselage and the tail boom, either on the top or the bottom. Similar with this one, this might go on the top or either way around. But again, very nicely molded, clean, raised details. This is a cap, so is this one that goes around the nose to kind of create a aerodynamic fairing with the fuselage, I would guess. So that's that. Next, we have sprue. This is N. This is I think this is what the main rotor mounts to. Kind of goes in the fuselage, acts as a stiffener. So it's like a belly piece right here. Again, more raised detail that you can catch in the light. Stub wings right here. Again, raised details. 2 mounting points. Mounting points for 2 of your pylons. Raised riveting. That shows it pretty well right there. Tail planes going down this way. Again, raised details. Everything is very sharply molded. These are the pylons, I would assume. Yeah. So we have that sprue. Start putting these somewhere. Okay, sprue M. Is that M or is that E? I think it's M. M is the cockpit. So obviously in the Apache, very visible cockpit, a lot of glass. So looking in here, seeing what Takom gave us is, at least from what I'm told, and you'll hear this later on when we talk to our Apache friend, actually quite accurate. I think the only thing he mentioned was in this front cockpit behind this panel. So in front of my fingernail right there, those buttons right there are not on American Apaches, or not on American E models, he said, but it's pretty easy to clean up. Just scrape them off, just paint up as a blanking plate, and you should be good to go. But other than that, he said this is actually quite good. There's some details that were potentially missing on the back wall here, but you will hear from that later. But again, what is molded here is quite nice. Also, the circuit breaker panel right here, some cabling. This is the instrument, one of the instrument panels right there. Again, catch that detail. Combing, sidewalls. This is the front, I believe this is the front instrument panel. Catch the button detail on the side of those screens. Overall, from my completely untrained eye, all this stuff looks really nice and should look really nice under a coat of paint. So we look forward to that. All right, that's that sprue. Okay, this sprue, Sprue D, is the exhaust. Obviously a very interesting feature of this model of Apache. There is I guess they're called the sugar soup exhaust. They're upturned. They kind of vent up. I guess that's to dissipate heat, reducing IR signature. This is, I think, some of the access panels. I won't even try to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm just here to show off this detail, and you can judge for yourselves. This is very, very nice. Very sharp, no flash at all. And kind of a welcome change from Takom is, I remember there were complaints before that the molding lugs on their sprues were too heavy and thick. Well, these seem nice and small. Okay, this is sprue A. You actually get 2 of these. This is you get all the rockets, the Hellfires, the rocket pods, I don't know what these are, honestly, but seats. I think this is the armored sort of backing to it, and the actual seat is here. Like, this is the actual cushion. There's a little bit of cloth texture molded on that. Wheels. Everything nice and clean. No flash. Nice, sharp sprue attachment points. Yeah, very nice. Here's a couple more sprues. This is sprue P, and this is F. So F looks like detail parts for maybe the rotor and the fold. I'll just do a quick little flyby here and you can see everything. Tail rotor. And sprue P, I think, is detail parts including the landing gear legs, which you can see right here. And if we look at those, there is a very, very faint mold seam on the round portion, but a little bit of scraping and a sanding sponge and you should be fine. This is that, I believe this is the parts of the round, the radar, or the radar thing that goes on top of the rotor. So you have parts here, 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 this, and that, I believe. But again, looking more at the parts. General recurring theme that you will hear a lot is everything is sharp. Nothing feels flashy or distorted. Everything looks nice. Tail wheel halves, I think, right there. Some framing for access panels potentially. Yeah. Sprue P. All right. And then Sprue L, you get 2 of these. So we'll just take a look at one. This is various form of small detail parts. You can see, I'm just gonna do a flyby for you to take a look. And you get 2 of those, so that's there. All right, Sprue R, I think these are the framing for the rotor fold, and some various other detail parts. You can see, I won't look at everything here, but you can see how nicely that is molded. As far as the accuracy of this, you will have to consult your references or photos on the web, whatever you choose to use. But what is here is definitely a light years ahead of what we currently have. And again, this is Sprue G and J. You get 2 of each, so take a look at one. This is obviously the wheel hub for the main landing gear. Those look like some kind of vent. And obviously, all important for a helicopter, the rotor blades, which are not pre-drooped, and I'm told that's actually accurate for the E model because it uses composite blades, which do not droop like a regular blade would. Yeah, cleanly molded. Looks like they will come off and be assembled with the hub. And there we go. So the final, this is Sprue E that I was trying to find earlier. Looks like we have some detail parts. This looks like the little sensor vane thing that goes in front of the canopy. A lot of other little detail parts, that handles, various grab handles, wire cutter, antenna. I think this goes on the tail boom or somewhere near there. Yeah. And then I think the only sprue that we have left is the clear sprue, which is right here. So this is the clear sprue. Again, there's a lot of glass on the Apache, so do a good job on the cockpit. Don't want to skimp there, but this is the canopy. You can take a look through that. There is 0 distortion through that main piece that goes on top. You can see my hands below that. And also, even on the slightly curved sort of outer, I guess the doors or the outer panels, very, very clear. Catch the light. These were individually bagged, so now the tricky part is going to be making sure I don't mess these up before I have a chance to glue them on. So this is a multi-piece canopy, so obviously I think this would go on first, and then the outside, this side would go on, and then you could choose to pose these open. Similar approach that I think Academy took to their AH-1Z. If it fits, it'll be good. If it doesn't fit, then you have a problem. But I suspect that this being a new kit, that it'll be fine. And finally, this bag here. Sorry for the plastic noises. We have a bunch of random items in here that we will take a look at. These are little metal tubes. I do not know what these are for, but they are there. So maybe for shell casings, I don't know, but they're there just in case. These are something 3D printed, very, very small. I have no idea what they are, but they are in this bag. Don't lose those. This, not a particular fan of because it'll be impossible to paint, but this is an ammo belt, I think, for the gun. It is flexible, as you can see, but that also means that paint won't stick to it. This would probably have been better as like photo etch or a 3D printed piece, but a length of wire that is quite stiff. I don't know what these are going to be used for, but if it's for wiring the rotor head, for example, I would probably replace this with more soft lead wire, because this, as you can see, is like, it doesn't really want to bend. It kind of just wants to go back to its original shape. Then you have several sheets of photo etch. These are very thin, don't bend them. This is fins for the Hellfires, I would guess. This is airframe details, I would say. This one is for the blade fold, so some hinges right there. I can picture those being a nightmare to glue, but they're there. And then this is details for vents, little grills. Everything is, obviously, you can see through it, so that's nice. Seat belts, lap belts. Yeah. And I believe that is everything. So, like I said, I will be building this one. Whether or not I finish it is a whole nother story, anyone who knows me. But, yeah, we will be building this. It hopefully will not take super long. I do have another project that's kind of coming up that's kind of urgent, so that's got to take priority. But I will work on this concurrently. And, yes, that is the AH-64E Apache Guardian from Takom/Snowman models. Okay, so now that we've gone through the whole sort of unboxing portion of it and you watched me stumble through it, I'm not a helicopter expert. I normally don't build helicopters. I like helicopters. I've wanted an Apache Guardian or Apache Longbow, 35th scale Apache forever. But so far, the only options have been the old Monogram kit, which is an A model, which apparently is not terrible. The Gangnam D model, but it was based on prototype and not super accurate either. Or I had to stick with 48 scale and build the Hasegawa kit, which is a nice kit, just not in 35th scale. So the next portion of this video will actually talk to a guy who is very, very well versed in the Apache. He flew it for several years and he's a published author. So we recorded a sort of a Zoom chat where he talks through some of the pros and cons of this kit, what they got right, what they didn't get right. We look at some detailed photos. Admittedly, the audio may not be perfect. It's the first time we've tried this. If we do it again in the future, we'll try to improve on that. If you have any questions, please do free to leave a comment and we will try to get back to you as soon as possible. So without further ado, we're gonna roll that portion of the review. Cool. And for the next kind of portion of this review video, a little bit different than when I usually just stumble through the details and try to tell you guys what everything is, we decided to introduce a little bit of expertise into this. I'm here with John Bernstein today. John, do you want to give a little bit of an intro about your background and also kind of what you do now?
The thing. So I flew AH-64s from 2006 to 2011. Enlisted in the Army in 2004. Mainly flew with the Pennsylvania National Guard. I trained on longbows in flight school, and then when I got to my unit, we had alpha models. So I flew alphas for a couple of years, and then we finally got deltas just before I got out. So I'm familiar with the alpha model, the Block 1, Block 2, and Block 2E Apache versions. Have had a lot of fun with them in the past. I'm currently the Arms and Armor Curator for the National Museum of the Marine Corps. I'm still Army through and through, but I'm working for the Marines now and have been for the past 3 years, and it's been pretty awesome.
And if I remember correctly, you're also a published author. You've written books on the AH-1 in Vietnam, the Apache in Afghanistan, as well as other kind of warbirds like the P-47. Is
Sure.
that correct?
I got 6 books out. The first one, yes, was the Cobra in Vietnam, and then I followed it up with Apache in Afghanistan and Iraq for Osprey. I did a walk around of the Apache for Squadron Signal, and then my last 3 books have focused on the P-47 and World War II, specifically in the European and Mediterranean theaters. So close air support and basically the use of aircraft to support troops on the ground is my main area of interest and research. And so anything that fits in that vein, I just sort of got about.
Cool. Can you give us a preview of what might be coming next in the book space, or is that a secret?
Actually, the project I'm working on now is threefold. It's going to be an exhibit, it's going to be a magazine article, and probably be a book as well. But I'm looking at the evolution of air-to-ground rockets, American air-to-ground rockets from 1943 to 54.
Cool. Well, I will leave links for John's other books in the description, and you guys can kind of look him up at your leisure and check out his books. So that kind of segues us into the actual kind of kit we're going to talk about today. Obviously, it's going to be the big 35th scale new on the block Apache, but we'll give a little bit of a kind of overview history of Apaches in plastic in general. John, do you want to kind of give an overview of what we've seen so far? I know we have a really good option 48 from Hasegawa. We've also had a larger option, albeit older, from Revell in the past, and some other reboxings and other little subvariants in between. But
sure. So yeah, the Hasegawa 48th scale kit has been the gold standard both for the Alpha and the Delta model for the past 25 years. They really were the most accurate, had the best detail, and they were for a very, very long time the only Apache kit that I could build, because they were the only one that got you, close to what the real thing is. The old Revell 32nd scale kit is actually still really good, but it and the monogram kit in 48th both suffer from the fact that they came out early and don't have a lot of the equipment that later Apaches had. I think the Revell one came out in 87 and the monogram came out in 89, somewhere around that. So they were accurate for like Panama. And by the time of Desert Storm, there were wire strike systems on them, and a whole bunch of other things that really kind of changed the appearance a bit. So they're good and they can be upgraded easily. In fact, when I was in flight school, I took a Revell Alpha model, converted it to a D model, and it became our class Flak. So I was kind of sliced off half of it and stuck it on the Flak. It should probably still be a Henchy on the airfield today. So there are some good options out there. I was really hugely disappointed in the IMEX Gangnam D model kit, because the only thing you could really build out of it was the prototype D model, and even that was very, very inaccurate. So I really have a lot of nice things to say about any of the Gangnam or IMEX kits. I think the Academy 35th scale Alpha model is a reboxing of that, but I haven't confirmed that. I haven't actually had a chance to look at that kit yet.
nice. So it seems that at least in the bigger scales, we've had both 32nd scale and 35th scale. Now it seems that for helicopters, at least in general, it seems like we're kind of growing in 35th scale. Obviously, recently there's been a lot more 35th scale releases. You have the Kitty Hawk, Seahawk, Black Hawk family, including the Pave Hawk, and more recently the Academy AH-1Z kit. It seems like they're also going to be reusing some of those parts in an upcoming UH-1Y kit, which is exciting. And also, obviously, everyone's been looking on Facebook the past week, seeing the ICM coming out of left field with the giant 135th scale sky crane. So not really entirely sure where I'm going to put that one, but it seems like 35th scale is kind of the new, almost a standard, I guess, in bigger detailed helicopter kits.
Yeah, it actually looks like ICM has done both the AH-1G in both 48th and 32nd so far, and it looks like they're probably doing one in 35th as well. So that's going to be pretty amazing too.
Looking forward to that. So So I guess if we're talking about 35th scale helicopters, obviously we're now segueing into the Takom and Snowman kit that we currently have out right now. In a little bit of a twist of internet fate, I guess Takom Snowman announces their Apaches. A couple weeks later, Ming comes along and says, "Hey, we have an Apache too." Then all of a sudden, Takom retorts and says, "Oh, by the way, we have an Mi-28 as well." So that little arms race was kind of fun to watch.
Definitely.
And a little bit of background, I suppose, on Takom and Snowman. Takom, everyone knows for their armor kits. They've kind of been in that space for a pretty long time. And Snowman is kind of a newcomer on the block. It seems that Snowman has released a couple of like sort of random ship or other accessory kits under their brand, but this is, I guess, their like most high profile release, so to say, kind of what everyone's probably going to be introduced to them by. And a little bit of background on how we think this kind of thing happens is these businesses in China get some sort of a tax break if they're a new company. So a lot of people will open up a subsidiary to take advantage of that. And I think that's why we have something like Trumpeter, Hobby Boss, Merit, I Love Kit, like that sort of umbrella of companies. So this is sort of what we're seeing with Takom and Snowman, I think. And I guess to go from there, we can jump into the kits. We obviously have 3 boxings: the Longbow, the Guardian, and also a World Apache boxing. Maybe John will be able to go into kind of detail of what the differences between the World Guardian or the World E and the Guardian are, but I'll hand it over to John to go over the sort of the highlights and the details, what they get right, what they get wrong of each of these.
So I got copies of the Longbow and the Guardian kit. I haven't seen the international, but from what I know, it's just a markings difference. But don't quote me on that. Definitely, would be interested in taking a look at that as well. But my initial impression on opening the box was, oh my God, this is the greatest Apache kit ever. The details are crisp. There's tons of parts. It really it looks like an Apache. Right down to the surface details, fantastic. One of the things that struck me right away, there's the fuselage, is this area right here, which is your engine firewall. A lot of detail, and as I went through a little further, I found 2 complete engines. So you can really do up your engine bays quite nicely. This area right here kind of jumped out at me because that's your fire doors. In case there's a fire, when you hit your fire, you go through your engine fire emergency procedure. Those doors will seal off the nacelle from the rest of the aircraft and give you a little more time to get the aircraft on the ground. So seeing that in model form was really kind of cool. I don't think anybody's ever done that before. Looking at the cockpit, it really is beautiful. I was going over shots of that I have of our birds and comparing knob for knob, and they got it about 90% correct. There was one, the left side console in the front seat. There's a cluster of buttons right at the back that I've never seen on an Apache. Doesn't mean they aren't there, but every photo that I had, those were just covered with blanking plates. But other than that, I was able to match up everything, including in the back seat where the ignition key goes. And yeah, there are ignition keys. And it even has a slot in it for the key. So that was really impressive to see. The one thing that did jump out at me as sort of a detriment, though, was the lack of options in the front seat. Now, if you want to build a Block 1 longbow, you can't with this kit because the front seat weapons engagement system is different. In the Block 1 longbow, you have an optic relay tube or an ORT, and in the Block 2 birds, you have a TDAC, which is another computer display. It only comes with the TDAC, so you're limited to a 2004 or later helicopter, and that only goes up to about 2009, really 2005, 2000. Contract years 2001, 2008. So you can't build an initial invasion of Iraq kit, example, out of this kit. even though it comes with markings for it. It comes with 3 sets of markings, all for Block 1 birds, but they don't give you the parts to build a Block 1.
And we'll cover all these details that John is mentioning. I have photos. We'll cover that a little bit later in the video when we talk about kind of detail sets and correction sets and such. So we'll come back to those in a little bit.
So there's so much detail in this kit that it blew my mind. It's just great stuff overall. Right down to things like the foresight equipment behind the TADs, behind the nose sensors, which nobody's ever done before. And it's got a couple of different options for it too. It looks like there's one for MTADs, which is the modernized system where it's much more simplified, and then the earlier TAD system, where you actually have to go through a manual foresight to do it rather than just pushing a button. So it has options for both of those, which was kind of cool. The longbow kit is limited also. It only has the early TADS and PIMDIS pilot night vision system, target acquisition designation system. There's 2 sensor turrets on the nose. It only has those for the earlier early Block 2s. So if you want to do a late Block 2, you need the E kit, but there are some differences there as well, which make that kind of difficult.
So what you can build out of the box, I think you may have mentioned before, was kind of did you say 2005?
Yeah, 2005 to 2009, really. Once they start upgrading the Block 2s and bringing in the Block 2Es, there are some differences, most notably the MTADS system.
Got it.
And so the D kit doesn't have any of the MTADS equipment. The E kit does. However, the E kit does not have D model rotor blades. It only has E model rotor blades, and there's a significant difference there. So you can't build a late D model with the E kit, which is what I was expecting to be able to do. So I was kind of frustrated at that. But here, actually, I've got both rotor blades here. You can see these are the D model, and then these are the E composite blades. And each kit only comes with 1 set of blades. So if you want to build a late model D with the E kit, you need the D model kit blades.
Got it. Slightly frustrating.
Yes.
But also doesn't sound like that's terribly difficult to rectify. Yeah. I guess we can also talk about on that subject, sort of as far as sort of detail sets and conversion sets. I'm going to throw up a couple of photos here in screen share, and then we can talk through them, John. Sure. So personally, actually, before I do that, I'd like to be able to do a Seraph, the kitted out, most badass version of the Apache, in my opinion. Obviously, that's quite a significant, pretty significant jump from the longbow. But hopefully Isracast will get to that soon.
I would like to see that as well. The major difference between the U.S. and Israeli machines is the wings. They have 4 additional flare buckets or chaff flare buckets in the trailing edges of their wings, which makes it a completely different wing. So that's going to have to be would have to be done in resin. I'm pretty sure they've got one, a conversion kit in 48th. So up to 35th shouldn't be terrible. But yeah, I would love to see that as well, especially because I have a Seraph patch that I'd like to display with one.
There you go. Okay, so I'm gonna share some photos here, and then John can talk through them. If any of the aftermarket vendors are watching, there's here's your list for what to do. So I guess we'll start with potentially this photo. What do you have marked out here, John?
So
green and red.
Red are the site surveying units. Those are the sensors that track the position of your helmet in the cockpit. And it looks like Takom probably had an E model as their reference, and so they neglected to include these. Now, one of the differences between the D and the E model is the helmet tracker system. The E model doesn't have these. It uses a magnetic tracker system. They have different equipment in the cockpit, which honestly I'm not all that familiar with. but I'm very familiar with these. And the fact that they left these out on the D was pretty huge. It really is glaringly apparent when you look at an Apache cockpit and you don't have your SSUs there. And then the two things in green are your gaspers for the ECU, or your environmental control unit. The Apache has full air conditioning. It's there to keep the avionics cool, not the pilots, but it's an added benefit. But those gaspers in the back seat, on the back wall of the cockpit, they have the hoses for them, but they have the hoses going back into the wall rather than coming out as those two gaspers. So that was a bit of a frustration too. So we're going to have to scratch build those. So yeah, I mean that's and there would be SSUs in both seats and gaspers as well. So it's
okay. So we would need one set for the front, one set for the back,
right.
Both green and red, essentially. Okay, and then we will start from this photo.
Okay, so this is a Block 1 AH-64D front seat. Block 1 was basically 1998 through 2003 contract years. If you're looking at building a longbow from the initial invasion of Iraq, this is what you need. Unfortunately, that large chunk there in the center, your optic relay tube or port, is not included in the D model kit, so you can't build that version. Now, oddly, the markings for the kit are all Block 1 birds, so that's a huge frustration. But an easy solution would be to grab the ORT out of an Academy Alpha model kit, cut the grips off, and use the Takom grips, and you should be good to go. But it would be really nice to have an ORT in resin to replace the TDAC that comes with the kit.
Right, and that seems like a pretty straightforward thing for someone to CAD up, to be able to release that. And then this second photo, what are we looking at here?
That is the TDAC. That's the Block 2 display that actually comes with the kit. So you can build anything from a 2004 contract year really onwards with this kit. But in 2008, 2009, they started hanging additional equipment on the helicopter. So it doesn't come with a lot of that. The E model does. So really, with the TDAC in the front seat and the lack of the ASPE, what we call the sugar scoop exhausts and things like that, really you're limited with the D model kit to building something that was flying between 2004 and 2009.
Got it. We move on to this photo. Anything in particular here you wanted to point out, or is this all?
I had mentioned earlier about the ignition key, and you can see that pretty much center right,
right there.
And they got that right. They got every switch and button on that panel correct. The only thing I would criticize on that one is how they did the two power levers there. They have them angled a little too far back. I moved them, I filled the hole that's there and moved them a little bit forward, and it ended up working out fine. But that was just sort of a nitpick of mine.
Got it.
But I mean, this is the first kit to actually show the power levers. So that was really cool to see as well.
And this is a non-annotated photo of those trackers and the vents.
So going back to that one for a second. One of the big problems with the Hasegawa 48 scale D model kit is they still have the circuit breakers above the pilot's head on the left-hand side of the cockpit rather than behind the seat. So what I've been doing for years is taking that panel, which was sort of a long, thin panel, chopping it up and repositioning it behind the seat. The kit actually gives you full circuit breaker panels behind the pilot's seat, which is really
so they got that right.
Yeah.
Cool. And then again, this is showing those environmental control.
Front seat, you've got your two gaspers here, and then you can see the at least the left side SSU there at the right side of the photo. Yeah.
Got it.
That's how they're mounted in the front seat. That's the CPG or your front seaters left-hand console. And at the left side there, you can see that blank plate there. On the kit, it comes with a whole bunch of buttons or knobs there. I just scraped those flat.
It's a pretty easy fix.
Yeah. And also the panel just in front of it, it's got the first row of 4 buttons correct, but that second row shows 5 buttons, which is incorrect. So I just lopped the 2 off and put a circular button for the master jettison button. So again, a little nitnoid detail that I took care of, but you know, the kit details other than that, as far as the cockpit, are just beautiful.
That's good to hear. So kind of in conclusion, it seems like there's maybe 3-4 things that if someone was to do kind of in a little easy detail sort of set and make available, it would be, I think, potentially a set of the rotor blades, a composite set, I believe.
Well, a standard set of blades for the E kit would get you to a late production beat.
Right. So a set of rotor blades, and then these helmet trackers on both sides, two sets or one for front seat, one for back seat, these vents to fix what's in the kit, and then this sort of, I guess, unit in the middle here.
Right. And there's one other, I think I sent you the photo of the main rotor drive plate too, which is something that no kit has gotten correct yet. Everybody seems to want to do the radar birds, and radar birds are pretty much 1 in 4. Most longbows and Guardians, for that matter, are flat tops. So there's a flat plate that goes over the top of the main rotor. Let me see if I can do it. But you know, it's something that has not been included in any kit, and it's something that really we could benefit from significantly. Let me see. Can I share this?
I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, and then I'll come back to that.
Right. So that flat plate would be something that we definitely want in resin to just give you more options on which aircraft you want them on.
And actually, as we kind of sort of begin to close out this portion of the review or the discussion on this new kit, John is actually currently building the longbow kit. I have some photos of his build here. You can see John's actually pretty much all the way done through the cockpit. Here's what looks like that. Is this the panel that you were talking about earlier of replacing the?
No, that would be in the front seat. I haven't gotten to that one yet. But if you look just next to the power levers, on that shot, if you can see just to the left of the power levers, the ignition key receptacle. Right there. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to see, but there's a slot cut into that ignition button or the ignition lever for that key. I will try to throw up an overlay of these because I think on the screen share they might be a little blurry, but
it looks pretty good. That, you know, it comes with decals for your MPDs, so you can show it with power on, which is kind of cool. I wish they'd given you a little more selection as far as what pages you could actually use, considering one of them would really only be displayed during flight, but they included images, so that's really cool. I'm really being nitpicky there, but you know, it really makes it look a lot better when you've got an actual image of what an MPD would look like, you know, on your model.
Well, cool. We look forward to seeing more progress of this kit. John, are you only posting progress photos on your personal page, or you post them elsewhere on Facebook or on any forums?
Yeah, there's a Takom Bang AH-64E page on Facebook that I've been posting steady reviews and you know, my progress on as I go. I'm doing it on my own page too, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to include everything on that page for people to look at and understand. It's actually kind of cool. I got in contact with a buddy of mine from flight school who I haven't seen in almost 20 years. through that page too. So he contacted me about building one.
Cool. We're bringing people back together here.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll leave a link to that page so you guys can join up and follow John's build. And I'm sure as more of the kits start to show up stateside, people get their pre-orders and stuff, we'll start to see many more builds start to come up. And obviously when the main Apache comes out, we might do a little head-to-head comparison, see who got what right and who got what wrong, and kind of come out with an ultimate Apache winner there. And if anybody, as far as aftermarket goes, is interested in doing Apache sets and wishes to speak to you, John, if they get in contact with me, or is it okay if I put them in touch with you?
You can contact me directly. I reached out to Meng too for a review copy. I haven't heard back from him yet, but it would be kind of cool to see.
Cool. Well, thank you, John, for your time today. It was great to chat through the kit with somebody who literally flew the thing. So, yeah, we look forward to following your build, and yeah, come back again for the kind of Meng versus Takom Apache showdown. Cool.